What is love? You've just asked me that, haven't you? What is love? Well, who am I to know? Well, let's try to approach it sensibly. Well, I suppose the first time I heard any attempt to explain that was in scripture lessons at school, when they said, God is love. But whatever does that mean? It certainly has many faces, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Through a long life, it comes in many forms. I always found it easy to love nature. I loved my dog. I loved my pet rabbits. Yes, I've always found it easy to love animals. I suppose I found it easy to love girls, but that was as far as it went, really. Then the easiness ended, because it always seemed to be sort of then run into complications. Love, what is it indeed? Well, like many of these impossible questions, just to try to be serious a bit, at least as far as the spiritual path is concerned, for those that choose to take it, most of our progress is measured by what we manage to eliminate on the way, i.e. the things that prove to be not it, or at least not sufficiently it, to not really measure up. I suppose that's really been the story of my life, through countless experiences of love, which to large or small degree sort of don't quite measure up. One moves on, often with great pain, to more experience. It was really quite soon after I learnt to meditate, but I was still quite a young man, I suppose, in my 30s, quite probably early 30s. I remember writing that meditation is a journey of love with a small L to love with a big L. So I certainly began to get the message then, quite soon really, that love wasn't really dependent on another person. That the experience of discovering this sort of infinite capacity within oneself really could often be described as love. And I think, again, I made a number of notes at that time of my life that I've still got. Actually, they're most of them now published in my books, which, oh yes, I remember feeling I had such a almost overwhelming longing for love. And I think I'd already begun to realize that when I tried to impose that on a woman, that women ran away, women sort of shrank away from it. It was, you shouldn't take yourself so seriously. This is the sort of thing people said to me. Why don't you just have fun? Well, I'm not into fun. I was never into fun. I wanted something more deeper and more serious, more total. I wanted total love. Yes, that's right. At one time I was described as a total lover. And I thought, yes, that's right, I am, absolutely. Total love. Yes. And I think I began, again, over many painful experiences, to realize that that few women really felt the same. And even if they did, somehow that totality didn't match mine, because total love, we're such a complex mix of physical, aren't we, mental, and then this vague sort of infinitude we call spirit. And some of us love more physically or more, one might say, sort of in the realm of ideas, or others in this, well, another word for the spirit is, of course, the heart. And the balance of these varies, and certainly the current person of in your attention by no means always matches you on these things. So at least I never really found that perfect sort of synthesis of two people. I've searched for it all my life, and only on very rare partial occasions, which were never really properly fulfilled, because the woman was always the other side of the world, or married to somebody else, or at a different age, or there was some reason that it couldn't sort of be made practical. See, when you go into the invisible realm, which we do in meditation, there's no problem about reciprocation, because you see, you're into the unlimited, and so whatever of yourself you're projecting out into the unlimited is met perfectly. So there's no, why don't you do this, or why don't you do that, or yes, today and not tomorrow, or sort of, or, you know, there's no qualification about it. That's the word. It's unqualified. So you can give of yourself utterly without embarrassment, and know that you're held in the arms of utter safety and utter loving response. This is the wonder, and I've never known this totally in a human realm. I've known it sufficiently to feed my longing, to drive me absolutely mad with longing and unhappiness when it didn't work out. But I always came back to meditation, and there found the reassurance of what seemed impossible in this world is possible in spirit. And gradually this phrase, God is love, began to make more and more sense to me when I began to equate this sort of infinite expansion of meditation, and realized, well, that is God, or at least one's drawing closer to the whatever point one can call it God. And now in my old age, I feel totally confident in fact, to think of expressing love in terms of mostly what I can't now do with my body. This sort of inclusion of somebody in this spiritual totality is the purest love I've ever known, and is the total love I've really longed for all my life. I don't think I worry too much about what I receive these days. Receiving doesn't seem very important. It's perhaps because in that total unqualified giving, or perhaps that giving and receiving, of course, is still in the world of duality, isn't it? And when we come into oneness, yes, that's the answer. Because real love, you see, or the fulfillment of love is in the undivision, is in the not dividedness of pure spirit. I remember being told that love is the power of unity. That's why there's a sort of magnetism between everything in this world, that sort of wanting to draw it together, rather like quicksilver, you know, what used to be called quicksilver that just runs together into a ball. I suppose a modern word for it might be called gravity, but that's what it really is. It's love, isn't it? Love is the drawing of objects together. Yes, there are all sorts of clever modern words for scientific words, but it's love. It's just what love is, the power of unity, the power of one. That from the highest to the lowest, we go through multiple levels, not only of consciousness, but of what we could call purity, you see. To begin with pure love, which, well, pure love is just like that. But the moment we get into you and me, then what do we say? We say, I love you. And that is duality, isn't it? I, a separate being, love you. So in comes desire, and of course, I want you. You know, it doesn't always match, does it? So now I really don't like to say I love you anymore now. In fact, I don't really like to end my letters, love from John, because John is my label of being separate now. And I feel much more comfortable just in spirit. Somebody the other day wrote to me about platonic love. Well, I remember reading about that as a young man. I don't like labels, you know, I really don't. I think the moment we start labeling and trying to describe things, we tend to sort of impose our own ignorance on them, especially pure things like love. I know it helps one to explain that love doesn't just have to be physical, or, you know, there are these different levels of love, as I said earlier. Perhaps rather than have different words for love, I remember I was still quite a young man. I think I was probably still in my 20s, but having thrown myself at the feet of quite a number of women by that time, and coming to the conclusion that I'm actually married to all of them, and that this idea of being married to one person more than others is not really right. You know, you'd see an attractive woman in the bus, at least I would, you know, and fall in love with her, and you know, and imagine, you know, all the lovely things that love thinks about, and then, you know, she'd get off the bus, and that would be the end of it. But you know, very often you never forget this experience. It somehow goes into your heart and is somehow held there. So you end up with a whole accumulation of these encounters in life. Some of them you never speak or know the woman's name. In other cases you do. My wise mother used to say, "You're in love with love." I think that's right, really. Yes, I think that's absolutely right. What that love is associated with, well, just sitting here now, that may seem almost secondary. Lots of people who said I'm romantic, I'll write a poem to anybody that smiles at me and, you know, pour out my heart. It doesn't take much to pull that trigger. And would never have thought of the practical aspects of it. I suppose this is one of my failures, that although I was always dreaming of the perfect woman, I never did anything about it. I never earned any money. It was only years later that I discovered that women like bathrooms and that women like presents and things, and it never occurred to me to give them flowers or to give them, you know, the sort of things that I'm told now women like. So no wonder nobody wanted to marry me. I mean, I only lived in pretty primitive conditions as a young man. I thought girls wanted love. But I didn't know they wanted bathrooms as well, and money, and nice clothes, and, you know. So, you know, talk about being a romantic fool. I thought they wanted to come, you know, camping out with me up on the hills or something. and then didn't want to shower afterwards. Well, I didn't have one. We didn't have showers when I was young, we only had baths. In this gradual revealing of what we are, we gradually come to realize that not only in ourselves but in other people, there is first of all the physical, and then there is the sort of mental, the thoughts, the level of thoughts, and then there is beyond. Now, normally when we look at each other, we look at the physical. We look with eyes of flesh, as it were, and we see flesh, don't we? So the first thing you notice is the physical body. So attraction is normally, or repulsion is normally, first of all, physical. And then, when you start to look a bit further, you will either through words, in exchange of words, you'll pick up something about the person's character, or, you know, sort of what they're interested in. And if you look in their eyes, there's also a sort of body language coming out of the eyes, the expression of the eyes. People talk of communicating with the eyes. Well, there's that too. So we have two levels, physical and what you could call mental. Well now, very, very occasionally in life, as happened to me at the age of 47, something opens up and you see beyond either physical or mental, into the infinite beyond. So you see not really so much woman or a woman called by a certain name or even an age, but you see, how do you describe it? You see something that maybe you've never seen before. It's like, well, perhaps I won't even try to describe it. Well, this did happen to me at the age of 47 with a woman. If I have to use a word, I'd say a word like the self with a capital S, the divine self, the divinity in her. Timeless, spaceless, unqualified. And into that infinite ocean, I not only fell, but I threw myself, and I never wanted to come out. And that changed my life. Well, I think back on it now as the great love experience of my life, although it never translated into, an earthly marriage. Loved and lost, than never to have loved at all. Well, in that case, I've been lucky because I've done much loving. Much loving and much losing. So all you dear people who like me carry a burden of disappointment through your love lives in this world. Take heart. Keep turning to spirit, and you never know, you may end up with a smile as big as I do on my face.